I've been working the night shift at the Bass Pro Shop outside Nye, Montana for 7 months now. I took the job because it was quiet, steady, and just far enough off the beaten path that most people wouldn't touch it. That's what I wanted. Somewhere calm, somewhere nobody would bother me. I've been saving up for a chunk of land near Woodbine, about 30 acres, tucked up against the mountains. No neighbors, no traffic. Just me, a solar array, and a few chickens if I'm lucky. That's still the plan. I'm not giving up on it. But if you'd asked me last week whether this job was worth the things I saw and the things I went through, I'd probably just laugh. Not because it's funny, but because there's not really a better reaction left. They don't tell you anything in the job posting, of course. It just says overnight stalker, lists the pay rate, and mentions some light customer service. I know you're going to ask what customers. I had the same question. We don't even leave the doors unlocked at night. If anything, the job sounded too good to be true, and for a while it was. The first week was smooth. I met Dale, older guy, quiet, ex-military, didn't say much unless you asked. We split the floor, kept to ourselves, and ran things like clockwork. The kind of boring I could live with. The kind of boring I wanted. Then came the yellow folder. It showed up on the desk in the break room after my 5th shift. I hadn't noticed it when I first clocked in, but there it was. Worn edges, a cracked plastic cover, and the words Night Protocols written in faded Sharpie across the front. At first, I thought it was a prank, or maybe some kind of dusty training manual no one bothered to toss. I opened it. Inside were 7 sheets of paper, each one typed in the same format, bold and underlined. A sentence or two beneath it. No explanation, no reasoning, just the rule, plain and cold. The first one read, Rule 1. If any taxidermy animal is facing a different direction than it was earlier in your shift, don't try to fix it. Do not touch it. Leave the area and circle back in 10 minutes. I remember staring at that line for a solid minute, waiting for it to make sense. It didn't. None of them did. They just sat there on the page like they belonged. I looked around, expecting someone to laugh or pop their head in with a, "Got you!" But the store was dead quiet. Just the faint hum of the freezers in the back, and the occasional creak of the roof settling in the cold. Dale wasn't in sight. And the rest of the rules? I'll get to those. You'll want to hear about them. But here's the thing. You don't understand these rules by reading them. You understand them when you break them, or when you watch someone else break them. That's how you really learn. I kept the folder, tucked it in my locker, right behind my lunch bag. I never told anyone about it, at least not at first. I just figured I'd found some weird leftover paperwork from a past manager with too much time on their hands. I was wrong. That folder was a warning, and I didn't take it seriously until the elk turned its head. I broke the first rule before I even understood what it meant. It was my 3rd week on the job. I'd already settled into the rhythm, stocking ammo near the back wall, running the overnight reports at the register, eating bad gas station sandwiches in the break room while watching the clock drag its feet past 3 a.m. The quiet suited me. At least, that's what I thought. The elk mount sat near the fly fishing section, raised up on a fake stone pedestal like it was the king of the store. It was massive, probably 8 feet tall if you counted the antlers, and its expression had this permanent glassy-eyed snarl that always made me laugh. I used to call it Greg, my ex's name. Something about the dopey look and the antlers made it feel right. Anyway, that night I was doing a sweep through the center aisles. It must have been close to 1 a.m., maybe a little after. Dale was in the back loading bay checking inventory. I remember humming something under my breath, just enough to fill the silence when I passed the elk. And it was staring at me. Not metaphorically, literally. The whole mount was angled wrong. Usually it faced down the aisle toward the fishing rods. I passed it every single night and barely gave it a second glance. But now those glass eyes were pointed directly at me. Just a few degrees off from normal, but enough to stop me mid-step. It felt like walking into a room and realizing someone had moved all your furniture half an inch. Not obvious, just off. I stood there staring at it for longer than I probably should have. Something about it unsettled me, even though I couldn't say why. The lights above were humming, and the shadows cast by its antlers stretched out across the tile in jagged shapes. I could have walked away. Should've. Instead, I reached out and touched it. I don't even know why. Maybe it was instinct. Maybe I just wanted to fix it, like nudging a crooked picture frame. My fingers closed around the antlers, expecting cold fiberglass or stiff foam. They were warm, not room temperature. Warm, like something alive, like skin. I flinched, but before I could let go, the entire mount gave a subtle jerk, like a muscle twitching under the surface. My gut seized up. I stumbled back and knocked into the shelf behind me, cans of bait rolling off and clattering to the floor. Then the elk's mouth opened, just slightly, enough for me to hear the creak of its jaw shifting. A single black bead of something thick and wet slid from the corner of its mouth and dropped to the floor with a soft plop. I froze, watched, waited for it to do something else, but the mount stayed still, silent, like nothing had happened. I backed away, heart pounding. I didn't run, I don't know why, but I didn't go near it either. I left the aisle and looped around to the front of the store, pretending to check price tags and pretending even harder that I wasn't shaking. 10 minutes later, I came back. The elk was facing forward again, exactly like it always had. Mouth closed, pose perfect. But the tile beneath it, the stain was still there. Oily, black, slowly soaking into the grout like it had been there for years. I didn't clean it. I didn't say a word to Dale. I just marked it in my notebook under a new heading I'd added that night. Don't touch them. I looked up the rule again when my shift ended. Rule 1. If any taxidermy animal is facing a different direction than it was earlier in your shift, don't try to fix it. Do not touch it. Leave the area and circle back in 10 minutes. The folder hadn't been joking. Not even a little. The second rule didn't scare me at first. It just sounded stupid. Sometimes an older man in a tan fishing vest will ask for what he forgot. Hand him the empty tackle box behind register 3. Do not ask what's inside. At the time, I assumed it was some kind of code phrase, maybe a weird test, maybe some backwoods prank the locals pulled on new hires. I'd seen some strange shoppers come through during the day shift, old-timers who seemed more mountain than man, so I figured it was just another oddity to ignore. But Dale didn't laugh when I mentioned it. He just grunted, then said, "If he asks, don't hesitate." That was all he gave me. No warning, no explanation, just that. The man showed up 2 weeks later. It was one of those nights where everything felt off, too quiet, too still. Snow was coming down heavy outside, and the wind was rattling the big display windows like it was trying to get in. I was stocking thermal socks near the front when I realized the chime hadn't gone off. That entrance chime is loud. You can't miss it. Dale says it sounds like a dying duck, and he's not wrong. But it hadn't made a sound. I turned toward the registers, and there he was. The man stood maybe 10 feet inside the store, motionless. Mid-70s, maybe older. His fishing vest was soaked through, dark patches where it clung to his chest. He didn't track snow, no wet footprints, just bone-dry boots on tile. His skin looked wrong, too. Pale like driftwood with cracks along his cheeks and jaw, like he'd been carved from old timber. He didn't move, didn't blink, just stared forward. I didn't know what to do, so I radioed Dale. Before I even finished saying, "Hey, we've got someone at the front." Dale was already rounding the corner, moving fast. Faster than I'd ever seen him move. He stepped between me and the man and said nothing, just stared back. Then the man finally spoke. "What I forgot," he said. 3 words. Dry, quiet, like brittle leaves. I felt the hairs on my neck rise instantly. Dale didn't respond. He turned, walked behind register 3, and unlocked the cabinet underneath. That tackle box had been there since I started. I'd seen it a dozen times, pale green, dented, missing a latch. It never moved. It never opened. Nobody ever used it. Dale picked it up with both hands and carried it like it was something fragile. Not precious. Fragile. Like it might fall apart or start bleeding if he held it wrong. He passed it to the man in the vest. The man took it. Opened it, just an inch. I didn't mean to look. I didn't even think about it. My eyes just moved, pulled to that narrow gap between lid and box. Inside, something shifted. Not tools, not bait, not anything solid. It moved, it wriggled. Something wet and glistening pulsed beneath the lid, like intestines sliding against metal. I saw it for maybe a second before the man shut it. He smiled. No teeth. Just a soft, satisfied curl of the lips that made my stomach turn. Then he turned and walked out. Dale didn't speak. He went outside and lit a cigarette with shaking hands, stood there until the sun came up. When I passed him on the way to my truck that morning, I asked, quietly, "Has he come before?" Dale didn't look at me, just stared out at the tree line and said, "Every few months." Then he added, almost too softly to hear, "Don't ever look inside again." I never did. Dale was out sick the week I learned Rule 3. Pneumonia, he said over the phone. Told me not to worry, that I'd be fine holding down the fort alone for a few nights. And I told him sure, of course, no problem. I even meant it. The store didn't scare me, not then, not yet. Besides, I'd gotten into a rhythm. Keep the doors locked after midnight, check each section twice, avoid the elk, don't talk about the tackle box, simple enough. But then the lights flickered. It was a little after 2. I was back by the ammunition shelves, restocking .308 rounds while listening to a podcast that had already lost my attention. The building was quiet, too quiet. And then, flicker. I paused. A second flicker, sharper this time. And then a third. 3 distinct flashes in a row, quick, deliberate, like the store itself was clearing its throat. I didn't hesitate. I dropped the box I was holding and took off down the aisle, boots hitting the tile hard enough to echo. I didn't even grab my jacket. I sprinted toward the break room like something was right behind me, even though I didn't hear a thing. The lights flickered once more as I reached the door, just enough to show my shadow sliding too fast along the wall. I slammed the door shut, twisted the lock, and shut off the overhead light. The silence hit me like a wave. I sat down on the floor, breathing hard, trying to focus on counting. 10 minutes. That's what the folder said. Stay inside, lock the door, and wait 10 minutes. Easy. But then I noticed the vending machine. It's right there in the corner. One of those big old ones with the swirling wire racks and thick glass face. I could see my reflection in it, even in the dark. The faint red glow from the power switch cast just enough light. And that's when I saw it. My reflection wasn't sitting, it was standing. Not moving. Just upright, staring down at me. My breath caught in my throat. I stayed perfectly still, hoping I was imagining it, hoping maybe the angle was wrong or the light was playing tricks. But then it smiled. Not a twitch of the lips. A full, wide, deliberate smile. Slow, measured. Its mouth kept opening, wider than it should have been able to. Far too wide. Cheeks stretching. Teeth, so many teeth, grinning down at me. I sat frozen, unable to breathe. Then its hands lifted. They pressed against the inside of the glass. Palms flat, fingers splayed. The surface didn't reflect them, it received them. Like the glass wasn't glass at all. Like it was something thinner. I turned away. Face to the wall, hands over my ears. I didn't make a sound. I counted to 600 every second, dragging like a year. I kept my eyes shut tight, heart pounding, muscles locked. Somewhere behind me, the vending machine made a faint clicking noise, like something sliding back into place. When the 10 minutes were up, I turned around. My reflection was back to normal, but the glass was smudged with fingerprints from the inside. Rule 4 always felt like a joke, until it didn't. If you see a child with antlers playing near the tents, do not interact. He is not lost. He is not alone. If he speaks, cover your ears until he's gone. The first time I read it, I remember laughing. Just one short, tired laugh in the break room like, really? A kid with antlers? It sounded like something from a weird backwoods fairy tale, not something I'd ever actually run into between aisles of high-end camping gear. But then Dale saw him. It was a Wednesday, just after 3 in the morning. We'd split up like usual. He took the hunting section, and I was restocking trail mix near the checkout. The radios had been quiet all night. Then his voice came through, low and shaky. "Katie, there's a kid," he said. "He's by the Coleman display." I froze. I don't think I even replied. I just turned and booked it down the center aisle, past the fishing poles, past the archery wall, heart picking up speed with every step. I'd never heard Dale sound like that before, unsteady, like something had knocked the air out of him. When I rounded the corner, I saw them. Dale stood stiff as a board next to the lantern display, eyes wide, not blinking. He looked like he was in shock. About 15 feet away, crouched beside one of the dome tents, was a boy. Maybe 8 years old, maybe younger. Dirty jeans, pale feet, no shoes. His shirt was torn down one side, like something had dragged across it. But it wasn't the clothes that made my stomach turn. It was the antlers. Two smooth, bone-white antlers curled up and out from the boy's scalp. They weren't strapped on. They grew from him. They split through matted hair and disappeared into pale, waxy skin. He was playing with the tent ropes, tying and untying them, murmuring something I couldn't hear. I started walking toward them. Dale didn't stop me. He just stared. The boy turned his head slowly, not like a child noticing someone, but like something that already knew I was there. And then he opened his mouth. There was no sound. But Dale dropped. It wasn't dramatic. He didn't cry out or flail. He just crumpled like a puppet with the strings cut, collapsing against the lantern display and sliding to the floor. That's when the buzzing started. It wasn't coming from outside. It was inside my head. A low, rattling hum that got louder with every heartbeat, like a wasp trapped behind my eyes. I stumbled back, dropped to my knees, and clamped my hands over my ears as tight as I could. The buzzing didn't stop. It shifted, became something more. Words, or what I think were words. Not English, not language, just sounds, horrible combinations of consonants and hard syllables that had no business being together. I couldn't understand them, but I felt them. Numbers, blood types, lab values, things I hadn't thought about since high school biology, swirling together in some impossible chant. Then silence. I opened my eyes. The boy was gone. Dale groaned softly, holding his nose. Blood dripped between his fingers and onto the tile. We didn't speak for a long time. I helped him sit up, handed him a wad of paper towels, and we sat there beside the tents until his nosebleed stopped. He wouldn't look at me. "What did he say?" I asked finally. Dale shook his head. "Didn't make sense," he said. "I don't think it was meant to." After that night, Dale started carrying earplugs. Me too. The next time the kid showed up, and he did, we didn't go near him. She came in at exactly 1:13 a.m. the first time I saw her. I had just finished restocking beef jerky along the camping aisle and was walking back toward the registers when I saw the water. A thin trail of it, starting near the front door and leading in slow, splotchy drips toward the counter. My boots made a quiet squish as I stepped through it. That's when I remembered Rule 5. If a woman in a soaking wet parka comes in between 1 and 2 a.m., do not speak unless she asks you a direct question. Her breath will fog the air, even indoors. Make her hot tea, leave it on the counter, and walk away. Do not watch her drink it. I froze. She was standing by the hunting register, coat dripping steadily, dark puddles spreading at her feet. I hadn't heard the door open, no chime, no wind, nothing. Just, she was there. Her face was pale, not sickly pale, transparent pale. Her skin looked like ice over river mud, and her eyes, they were so light, they barely looked real, like cloudy glass, like frozen water over something rotting underneath. I almost said something. It was instinct. I'd opened my mouth to ask if she needed help. She looked up before I got the words out, just looked at me. That shut me up fast. She didn't blink, didn't smile. She just stared with those awful see-through eyes and said one word. Tea. Her voice was low and hoarse, like she hadn't used it in years. It wasn't a question, it was a command. I nodded, throat tight, and hurried to the back room. The kitchen isn't much, just a microwave, a sink, and a cheap electric kettle we mostly use for instant noodles and gas station coffee. I didn't ask what kind of tea she wanted. I didn't think that mattered. I grabbed the first thing I saw, chamomile, in a cracked tin that had probably been there longer than me, and started the water. When I came back out with the cup, she hadn't moved. Same posture, same puddle, same dead stare. Her breath hung in the air like smoke, curling in little wisps even though the store was warm. I set the mug down on the counter and stepped back. One step, then another. I didn't turn my back on her, but I made damn sure not to meet her eyes again. She lifted the cup. I heard every sip. Not slurps, not gulps, swallows, long, slow ones, like something hollow was trying to remember how to drink. Each one made my stomach twist tighter. I stood near the ammo aisle, staring down at the floor and counting under my breath. 20, 30, 40 seconds. Then silence. When I looked back, she was gone. No chime, no footsteps, no closing door, just gone. The puddle remained. But the teacup was still full. Sitting on the counter, steam rising from it like nothing had been touched. I picked it up. The water inside was black. Not dark brown, not old tea. Black, thick, almost tar-like. I dumped it into the sink without thinking, and it stained the basin like oil. She's come in twice since then, never at the exact same time, but always between 1 and 2. Each time she says the same word. Each time I make the tea, place it in front of her, and walk away. And each time, the cup is full when she's gone. The 6th rule isn't one you break by accident. You have to choose to break it. And if you do, there's no going back. Never check the security footage between 3 and 4 a.m. Not live feed, not recorded, not even if someone tells you to. When I first read that one, I figured it was some kind of weird superstition, or maybe even a legal thing. Like maybe corporate didn't want anyone finding something they weren't supposed to see. I never planned to test it. Ryder did. He was the new guy. Mid-20s, fresh-faced, the kind of outdoorsy that feels like it came out of a catalog. He wore crisp flannel shirts and always had that polite, eager energy like he was trying to impress someone. I think he was bored. Or maybe he thought we were messing with him. He joined us about a month after the woman in the parka first showed up. Dale gave him the rundown in his usual quiet, clipped way. I handed him the folder. He read it, made a couple of jokes, and asked if this was some kind of night shift hazing ritual. I told him to take it seriously. He smiled and said, sure. 3 days later, he broke Rule 6. It was a slow night. Snow was coming down sideways outside, wind howling through the loading dock vents, and we hadn't seen a customer, living or otherwise, in hours. I was doing a count near the archery wall when I heard Ryder over the radio. Hey, motion alert, just pinged the back hallway. You want me to check the feed? My stomach dropped. I grabbed my radio and snapped back. What time is it? 3:02. Don't. I was already moving. I'm coming to you. Just back away from the monitors. No reply. I sprinted past the camping section, heart pounding, ducked through the staff door, and into the security room. Ryder was already seated at the desk, hand on the keyboard. The screen was lit up. He was rolling back footage. I told you not to. I started. I just want to see what tripped it, he said. It's probably a raccoon. The feed loaded. Static. Then, clear video. It showed the back hallway by the loading dock. Empty. Then it appeared. No movement, no lead-in, just there. 1 second the hallway was empty. The next, something was standing in the middle of it. It wasn't human. It had the shape of a person, sure, but the proportions were all wrong. Too tall, too thin, like someone had twisted coat hangers into the vague form of a man and stretched plastic wrap over the top. It didn't have a face. It didn't move. Then it turned, not its body, just its head. And it looked at the camera. The screen went black, just like that. The monitor didn't shut off. The feed was still running, but the video was gone. Just darkness. Ryder didn't move. He stared at the blank screen like he was frozen. His jaw was tight, his eyes wide. I told you not to watch it. I said quietly. I didn't. He didn't finish his sentence. He didn't sleep for 3 days after that. Came into work looking worse each night. Eyes bloodshot, stubble creeping in, nerves on edge. He kept asking if I saw it too, if Dale had ever mentioned anything like it. I said yes. Dale said no. It didn't matter. The last shift he worked before taking a leave of absence, he told me he'd started seeing it outside his apartment. Just glimpses, reflected in car windows or in the corners of his bedroom when he blinked too long. I didn't know what to say. I just told him not to check the footage again. Rule 7. If you hear goose calls after midnight, ignore them. Do not respond. Do not go looking. Stay where you are until the sound stops. That's what the folder says. It's the last rule. The one that feels the dumbest, right up until it's not. Because for months, the geese were just that. Geese. Taxidermied, stiff, arranged mid-flight over the waterfowl section. Wings out, beaks open, glass eyes staring forever into nowhere. They hung from thin wires above the shelves, 12 of them, forming a perfect V-shape. Creepy, sure, but nothing special. I walked under them 100 times and never gave them a second thought, until they started honking. It was Ryder's last night. I was in the break room trying to stay awake with burnt coffee when Dale radioed from across the store. Do you hear that? Hear what? That honking. Sounds like geese. I went still. I hadn't heard anything yet, but I knew the rule, and I knew Dale wouldn't call for nothing. Then I heard it, distant at first, like it was coming from somewhere beyond the walls. A low, wet honk, drawn out and angry. Then another. Then another. I grabbed my radio again. Where's Ryder? Don't know. He went to check plumbing near the back. I swore out loud and bolted into the main floor. The calls were louder now. Closer. They weren't coming from outside. They were coming from the air, from above. And they were getting angrier. I called for Ryder over the radio. No response. Dale was already moving. I could hear it in the static. I ran toward the waterfowl section, heart pounding in my ears. I didn't expect what we found. Ryder was lying flat on his back in the middle of the aisle, surrounded by the geese. They weren't mounted anymore. They weren't hanging from wires. They were sprawled in a loose, jagged circle around him. Blood soaked the tile beneath them, pooled thick around their webbed feet. Ryder's throat was torn open. Not clean, shredded, like it had been chewed through. His eyes were wide, his mouth half open, and he looked surprised. Like he hadn't seen it coming. One of the geese, its beak smeared red, was holding something in its mouth. It was his tongue. I couldn't move, couldn't breathe. The air was heavy with the smell of copper and wet feathers. Dale stepped past me slowly, carefully, as if a sudden movement might wake them up, but they didn't move, not again. I didn't finish the shift. I walked into the break room, pulled off my vest, and tossed it in the trash. Dale didn't say a word. He just nodded, like he knew it was coming. Maybe he did. He's still working there, as far as I know. Me? I walked out into the dark, didn't even wait for sunrise. My hands were still shaking when I got to my truck, but I drove straight home without stopping. I told myself I wouldn't look back. And I haven't. Not really. But sometimes, when I'm driving along the Yellowstone River at night, I hear them again. A single honk echoing through the trees, then another. Just that mocking sound, following me down the road.